Guard Your Grill Boxing. Like we said, we're back. Coltrane,
Yeah,
Berto Flack, man. So, we joked about how, this Crawford Spence fight is really taken over all of us in boxing. And, the fortunate thing is there's more, there's still a lot of boxing ahead of us. So we had to kind of,
absolutely.
we're going to speak a little bit about, at least Terence Crawford in this instance, but we got to
Yeah,
move on, and we got a whole weekend of boxing.
we do got to move on, but there's a lot of
No, I know.
yeah.
You.
There's some
I know.
breadcrumbs that Crawford that leads to him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, man.
some stuff that's happening right now in boxing. But yeah, no, but in the grand scheme of things, yes, yeah. There's more things to take place. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So we got a weekend of boxing. We got a really good fight on ESPN.
We do.
We always talk about the Mexico versus Mexico rivalries, man. Some of one of the trilogies that we were able to see, Barrera and Morales.
Yeah.
We're gonna see one this weekend, man. Emanuel Navarrate defending his WBO belt, 130-pound belt.
Yep.
Former champion Oscar
Super
Valdez.
featherweight. Super featherweight. It's funny because I remember at one time Emanuel Navarrete was in this. They were talking about him fighting Shakur. Remember? Before?
Yeah, like
I think after the
126.
Valdez fight. Yeah, but they was probably never going. It was.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah, it's. I think stylistically, those fights was just bad matchups for Shakur.
Yeah.
So him moving up and on was although he's having trouble having fights, we'll touch on that a little bit too. Although he's having some trouble finding some fights at 135.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, we got it. That fight is happening Saturday. I said it's like a Western. It's in Glendale, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I made a clinic. Shout out to my Western fans out there. I said this is like a modern day Western. Two gunslingers right in the middle of the ring. I think, like you brought up a good point last week. You said sometimes these type of fights will upstage these big fights. That we saw, because to be fair, we didn't really get what we were supposed to get 2 weeks ago. The
right,
two fights
right. I know what you're talking about.
Don't get me wrong. It was two masterful performances by two really good fighters, great fighters rather. So I don't want to lose that, but in the grand scheme of things, we didn't get the fights that we were anticipating collectively. So I think Saturday night that we're going to get that though.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is it has the recipe for a war down the stretch. Oscar Valdez is he's an experienced guy here. He's seen Shakur. You know what I'm saying? He's he had that big knockout over Miguel Burchell. Where made the ESPN highlights, and then Navarrete. What's crazy with him is as big and lanky as he is, he started as a flyweight.
Ain't that crazy?
Which is crazy, right? Like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that though. That's on ESPN. We got the Showtime card.
Yes.
The triple header on there. Before we got on, man. Gary Antoine Russell.
The biggest name on a card, ideally. Like in the boxing community, you would probably say from a namesake wise. You know what I'm saying? Like, strange career.
Right, man. And he's one of these guys that I feel is in a situation where, again, in today's world of boxing, where he, it really is where you are and the fights you may get depending where you're at. And he's not in contention for a world title yet, but when you look at the PBC and Showtime, like what's their 140-pound division looking like, So he's in a tough spot, man, but he's one of the 140 pounders that we have our eye on. He comes from the Russell family, so it's kind of
let's talk about him moving up to welterweight. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know if that's the move. I think he's fighting a Kent Cruz, who I've never seen fight before. So
I think that in the next year you're going to see a lot of guys once it's official that Bud has moved on and relinquished those belts because we believe that he will.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see more guys kind of moving up for those vacant titles, taking a
Yeah.
shot at it.
Yeah.
So I think that traditionally that's kind of how it's been. Why would you stay at one? I just wonder sometimes who's managing some of these fighters. Like if I'm managing fighters, the first thing I'm gonna look at is the landscape of every division and is it worth our while to be here? And I know that 140 traditionally since you and I grew up watching boxing has always been sort of like a stepping stone
Stepping
to get to
stone.
147. Not too. We had some guys, guys like Kendall Holt, the Sean B. Mitchells of the world, the chop type guys that kind of camped out there for a good period of time. But for the most part, it's always been a stepping stone division. And to your point about the PBC roster, they don't really have a lot of 140-pound fighters. So
No, they don't.
I'm just like, if you managing a fighter, and I granted it's weight classes for a reason, but I'm like, why, you wasting years and
Yeah.
time in these guys' careers? Like, it has to be a plan in place for this.
I agree.
And and then you look at a guy like Boots who don't, looking for opponents. That like I'm building a guy. I'm like, well, we fought Boots in an amateur. Maybe that's a fight we could potentially look at down the line. I'm talking about from the Gary. Now, not now. You Boots, you looking at that fight like, but I'm just trying to create storylines and put fights together. That's normally the way it goes. We in a tricky. I hate keep coming back to Crawford, but we in a tricky situation right now because we're closing it. We're closing the division out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
It's
you
happening
closing
in
one
two
division,
divisions too, at lightweight
right?
and
Lightweight,
at welterweight.
yeah. Lightweight, welterweight. It's a weird. It's funny. I'm gonna touch on lightweight for a second because I put a post up and everybody was like, "Oh, you gotta wait." But you and I, we see a lot of. Look, I'm not trying to, toot our horn or pat ourselves on the back. But the one thing I think that collective you and I we share is that we're able to like kind of like process stuff and see stuff. You know what I mean? Like not that we're Nostradamus, and this don't have nothing to do with predicting fights. By the way, this is more so speaking of the
The
landscape
landscape, right,
of
right.
how stuff play out. And you and I both said, well, look, we're it's a couple things going on, right? You got Crawford and Spence, right? They was the last pieces to that generation to the puzzle.
Right.
They're gone. You got Boots.
Mm-hmm.
You got Stanionis. You got Virgil Ortiz, who's already on record saying he's moving up to 154. So take him out the equation. So now you got smaller guys who we all believe, you and I at least, will be welterweights essentially. Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, Ryan Garcia,
Teofimo.
Teofimo, Gervonta, and I got a theory on him. I'm gonna put him to the side for a second, but even you want to throw him in there. So you got all these young guys, smaller guys who are potentially going to move up. So then you got Boots, right? So Boots in the situation, his, Boozy, his pop said, look, and I knew this conversation was getting ready to start getting more louder, because this kind of happened with guys like Paul Williams, where it's like, our phone is, we're listening, up. If up is where it got to be, then that's where it's going to be. And I started thinking about Boots. I'm like, damn, really, technically, all his potential big fights might be at 154 and not 147.
Right.
You feel me?
We've been saying that though. Like we've been saying that for a while because I just think the landscape of 147 is that of as Crawford likely relinquishes his belts, or so we think. I mean, I think he will.
Yeah, we believe he will. Yeah, he made comments. Yeah,
it kind of leaves the landscape of the division like, well, what? All right, what are the big fights at 147? Now, you made a good point about them dudes at 140 coming up, like the Teofimos and the Ryan, and all those guys.
Smaller
They'll
guys.
make the division glamorous again in their own way, Haney and I mean, Shakur, I think eventually, but it's like he just got to like
he just got there, so you gotta wait for him. But and they'll all be there at the same time
at
sooner
some
or
point.
later.
Yeah,
but they're smaller, so it's like it's a stall out tactic. You know, not that they're afraid of Boots, but they're smaller dudes. So
Yeah.
they won't move up there until it's clear, like the
Yeah.
landing is clear. You know, it has to be a clear landing situation. So a bigger guy like Boots will move up. Look, because at the end of the day, and I always tell people this, like this is prize fighting. So guys want to get paid. They're not going to sit around and just fighting for vacant belts just to say, oh, I won a title, especially if it's not leading anywhere.
Right.
So, all right, cool. You pick up these vacant titles. Now what? Where's the big fight?
Yeah.
Where's the, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No,
so then you look at 154 and it's like, all right, Tim Tszyu. What's my man name? The big guy. The big guy that just lost. Fundora. I'm just throwing names out there. Not that, you know, these are household names. You got Fundora. You got guys like Erickson Lubin. Obviously, you know, Spence,
all those guys,
Crawford, you know, all those guys. Like, you got all these, you know, not the most attractive names, but they're better names than what's at 47. Yeah. But ultimately, you got Tim Tszyu there, who's going to be probably a multiple belt holder, right? He already got the WBO. I'm quite sure one of them other titles, because we'll get into that in a second about Jermell relinquishing them other titles, right? So, but before we get into that, because I know we're jumping over, but I gotta talk to you about this because I feel like something big is coming with Gervonta. What I mean by big, I think we're gonna get a catchweight fight, and it's 2 fights that people gonna think that I'm crazy, but when you think about it, it's not that unrealistic, right? So the first catchweight I'm gonna throw out there to you, I think that. All right, put it like this: I think Gervonta fighting Crawford is not as crazy as people may think it is. Even though I think Crawford, we know who will win the fight. You know, of course, then there might be some people out there that think otherwise, and that's fine. But you and I look at it like, you know, it's kind of a mismatch. But from a logistical business sense, because that's how you got to remember, you got to think with Floyd's mind, you know. So the way they're controlling Gervonta's career, I believe, is that he's like an attraction right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at he's almost just doing like blockbuster films, you know.
Yeah.
You know, no straight to DVD movies. It's all blockbuster, right? So obviously the other guy out there is Emanuel, you know. So who is crazy because you're talking about the contrast of weight from that direction to that direction, right? You know, so I think that they're looking at fights where they just want to do blockbuster fights.
Yeah.
And I say that to say that normally, traditionally, where there's smoke, because I remember when the Pacquiao conversations first came about. You there, Roberto?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
I remember years ago when they first started talking about Pacquiao moving up. You know, like, you know, would he move up to welterweight? And it was just like kind of like, you know, but it's all about it got to be the right situation. Now, the difference with this is that these are 2 very, well, anyway, is a little different because he's smaller, but Bud is not Oscar De La Hoya on the way out the door. Right. You know, so
yeah.
If you're moving up to fight him, now here's where that just get a little tricky at though. What weight are they fighting at? Because Bud ain't coming.
He's
nowhere
not
near.
Concede to.
He's not going to concede. And of course, they would try to entice him. You know how it go. You know, but Bud got. You know, I mean, obviously, the type of money they would try to offer him would be like, all right, let me think about it. But he already said like, I'm not going beneath 47. So if it was to happen, hypothetically, it would have to be a welterweight at 147.
Yeah. And I don't think that ends well for him, to be honest with you, man. Like,
no, it doesn't.
Here's another name that is floating around there. You mentioned welterweights. Is Keith Thurman. You know, he's another guy. Again, this is all hypothetical, but he seems.
Right. No, I know what you're saying.
He seems like he just wants like the biggest bang for the buck.
Right.
And what's a Boots fight to him? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. Like Tank is. That's
I like the Thurman idea. Let me tell you real quick why I like the Thurman idea. We'll go back, then we'll circle back to Gervonta. I don't think Bud is taking, even though, and if you listen to when these fighters talk, you got to listen clearly. Everybody, oh, it was an easy fight. He's like, yeah, I still had to take my body through this. I had to prepare.
Mhm.
So when fighters talk like that, that means I'm going to take a break my next fight, and then I'll fight another big fight after that.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. Like mind preparing, your mind needs a break too. When you prepare for that type of action, even though it didn't play out the way it was supposed to play out, he said, "Man, I took my body through hell for that fight."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not to disrespect to Keith Thurman, but it's like, I'll take a Keith Thurman, to your point, big name, decent money, and it'll get me right for the next, whatever my next situation gonna be. I just got this feeling. I don't know who's gonna be. And again, I don't want nobody thinking that I'm saying that these fights gonna happen, but I'm just telling y'all, don't be shocked if we hear something. Look, we got Jermell and Canelo. If you would have told me this last year, I would have been like, hell no. I'm not ruling anything off the table.
I think
is what I'm saying.
with Tank, I think it's, and we'll segue because they announced they're doing it's a 2-city press tour with Canelo
Yep.
and Charlo. They're gonna really push this thing. I think Tank is all right. So you look at Charlo's situation, and listen, this isn't well. Yeah, I guess you could look at it two ways because we talked about this before, whether or not this might have been in the plans all along, or if this was a desperation move because Maul didn't want the fight or turned down the fight.
Right.
With Mel, let's just say this fight, I want to say this is going to be the biggest bag he's ever going to make against Canelo Alvarez.
Absolutely. And
Right.
They haven't mentioned the purse, but we're going to have to guess it's going to be somewhere up there.
I don't know if Tank yet. And here's the $1 million question too, man. Like, is he still with Floyd? Is he like who's really?
Well,
who's really running the ship, man? I mean, again, people ask, like, what does it matter? Well, it does matter because it's all subjected to where we think his direction is going to be as far as who he's going to fight. And the crazy thing is, there's fights at lightweight. We're not like we're not naive. They're there, but it just seems like you have all these guys, right, that are in and around each other, talking, going back and forth, and Tank is just like outside that circle, being paraded around like, he's the man, he's the man, he's the man. So it's you just wonder. Especially coming off of 2 Saturdays ago, where who were we saying he was going to fight in December? Very, very likely.
Right.
Pitbull, right? Does that fight look attractive now? Like, so.
And that's the point I'm trying to get at. Is like, if you're not taking these fights that everybody want, and look, the lightweight is drying up, bro. Like, guys are leaving. I mean, you got Frank Martin, but did that seem like a fight they're in a rush to take?
It's 3 guys because Haynes is moving up.
Yeah.
It's Frank Martin, Shakur, and what's left of Lomachenko at this point.
Yeah. That's still a wild card, but then it's like cross promotion, know. Yeah, it's like, it's tricky, but that's why I'm saying, like, bro, like, all right, so let's go back to the Floyd part first and foremost. Let's touch on that because he said he dropped a bomb. He dropped many bombs in that interview.
It was like one interview, but it was like a series of.
It was a whole. He had a lot to say in one. Although a lot of it was, it kept going kind of back to the same point, landing point. But he said that, and he said this before, but just reiterating it again. He said anybody that's signed with Al Heyman is signed with him. So in translation, what he's telling everybody that he's an investor, right? And look, he's not the first guy that could be, that is a silent partner in an organization. There's a bunch of those people out there. But he made it very clear that, he has a lot to do with, the dealings that go on over there. So with that being said, Gervonta doesn't have a direct promotional deal with him, but they're basically still doing business together.
Right.
So if they're still doing business together, that means that Gervonta is trusting Floyd's opinion in his mind on his career. So when I hear Floyd talk like he's still a part of Gervonta's career, he's like, he brought up anyway. He didn't bring up, he never talked about Crawford because I think Floyd kind of knows that that's more realistic than Crawford, right? The Inoue situation. That's the one that could potentially happen within a year or two. That one there. That's more easier. And I know people can be like, well, he's only at 122. It's not as hard as people think because he would gradually move up to 126, right? And then you start from there, you start talking about catchweights. And they always say how Gervonta can make 130, 135. So the catchweight would be at like, what, 133 or something like that. You know, some crazy number like that. So crazy as that number sound, I know people going to say, well, anyway, small. And, you know, man, I've been following this sport a long time. And one thing that changes people's minds quicker than anything is money.
Yeah.
And anyway is he's, how can I put this? Where big as he is in Japan, this amount crazy as this may sound, he's bigger than Pacquiao over there. Because Japan got what, 14 million people there? Like, it's the hugest place in the world, right? Like outside, I don't know if New York got more, but Mumbai, I forget. But I know it's one of the largest places.
He's a superstar.
You know, that exists. Yeah. He's a mega, because I was talking to people from Fulton Camp that was over there. They said, bro, it's crazy. You know, it's insane. They said that the first American superstar he fights is going to shatter any pay-per-view record. You got to think about it. I always tell people this about the continent of Asia. It's like one of our most populated continents, right? So when a fighter comes from particularly your Oriental countries, right? So, and forgive me if that's a politically incorrect word. I'm just trying to stay on I'm trying to stay on, on track geographically.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you got all these different countries, like from China to Korea, obviously like the Philippines, you go to Southeast Asia where the Philippines, Thailand, and all that. Those people all, when you have a star from that walk of the world, they all come together and galvanize, just like they did for Pacquiao. Mm-hmm. Pacquiao was from the Philippines, but the continent was behind him 1,000%. And I just think that, like, Floyd is looking at all that. Like, man, we could do something that
we
even
dollar
Trump's run them.
Right.
Yeah, look, if you got 1.2 with him and Ryan, like, that's easy. Bro, like, those people will buy that fight, support it. Again, we're talking extreme hypotheticals here, but we're in it. We got a traffic jam of fighters that's all kind of like near. Put the heavyweights out the window. Obviously, the super middleweight. Well, then again, but you look at all these smaller divisions from like 60 on down. It's a traffic jam.
Mm-hmm. Moving
just
up,
wonder
moving
how
back. stuck
Bob
in the red light.
Bob Arum, Mini Moon, which was 2008, did the unthinkable, got with Oscar, because Oscar was on his own at that point.
Yeah.
Got with Oscar, and it was like, let's do something wild. Let's do something different. And I know people like that never seen it, don't believe it could happen because I seen it happen before. That's why I would never rule it out. And when Floyd starts talking about stuff, then it's the conversation has begun.
Yeah.
This is just think about that. I think Gervonta wants to fight Crawford because Spence was his man. They had their little beef. The whole PBC when he was with Top Rank. So his beef is like, I want to settle this. And look, he's a fighter. He think he could beat anybody. So I don't knock him for thinking he could beat Crawford. I don't think it would be a good idea, but I don't. If that's what he thinks, then go for it. But I think Floyd is thinking more. This is more realistic. It's a more winnable fight, and it's a more lucrative fight.
Right.
So,
and he has listen, like Floyd is never going to put Tank at a disadvantage.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
There you go. And I know he knows that the Crawford is just,
he knows
that's all wrong.
That's right.
It's all wrong.
So I guess in the immediate, I guess the question really becomes like if he
It's
does
a
have a
shame though
fight.
because you got these fights, but and it's like we're talking about.
Well,
They
right.
made it.
It's right. It's he's just the question mark because he's in a division that really has. I mean, let's say it's one premier fight that could be a premier fight with him and Shakur, but
Yeah,
it's what's the trek to that, And
yeah.
again, Floyd. And the interesting part is he's training with Shakur. It's
No,
just
I was going to say it's
it's
so
just
much to
very
unpack here.
very
Yeah,
strange
it's like
situation, man. But I
yeah.
don't know. Like I guess with Tank, well, every it's interesting. He's one of those fighters that like with other fighters. You kind of see again, like we talked about, like you see, all right, like he's gonna fight that guy, and with Tank, it's like, all right, who are you gonna fight? And then like, oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, there's never like, it's always a guess,
Can I?
and the argument comes down to, and look, we still come from the creed of, the if you want to be considered the dude, you got to like fight the world champion and beat the world champion, but it doesn't seem to be like that for Tank, like where that's kind of
I
just a moot point.
I think this is the way I think they're looking at it, right? Because I'm trying to look at it through Floyd lenses. To your point, the way I think he's seeing it, he's probably like, we know those fights are there, and we're gonna kind of put them on a back burner. We're gonna cash out on all these opportunities and then circle back. Because just think about something. Remember, we always talk about this, right? Those guys, by the time those fights probably materialize, they'll probably all be done for each other. Look what Devin is going through right now. Regis Prograis, right? Had to fight Lomachenko. Wars. You know where I'm going at with this,
Yeah,
so all
right.
right, we'll take the Devin fight. We'll take it. We'll take that now.
Yeah, right,
After
right.
Dev done been through some, he done been touched up and been through some stuff. So now we'll take the fight after we done cashed out, made a gazillions of dollars with all these crazy catchweight fights or
Yeah.
whatever. I just think Floyd is always looking. They're base. Look, Leonard Ellaby has came on record. Look at the Ryan Garcia fight. That was really a show. Like, listen, and we said it from the rip. Like, Ryan Garcia don't belong in the same ring, and it's not no disrespect. But when that fight happened, he was nowhere near ready to share a ring with Gervonta. But it was a show. It was a show, and the people love a show, and I think that was like a gift and a curse. And I said it then. I said, if this fight is successful, the bad part about it is you might not see him in
And like one of those, like the fights,
one of
right?
these
I know what
kind
you
of
mean.
fight for quite for a little minute.
Yeah.
Not saying it won't happen, but it's look, we've seen this movie play out before.
Yep.
We seen it with guys. They get to this level. Look, Floyd, part of his career, the latter part, was able to strategically move pieces, so, it happens, and I just think with Gervonta, it just happened a lot earlier because, it's just the landscape is different,
Right.
it's all about marketing, your social media mentions, Ryan Garcia basically social media his way into a blockbuster fight, when other guys had to, you know,
Work their way into it.
get
Yeah.
get their way, work their way to the line. He got right to the front of the line, jumped in front of everybody.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate because, like you said, we should be talking about not woulda, coulda, shouldas. Like, this is real simple for me. Gervonta and Devin were supposed to fight each other at 135.
Yeah.
That should have been the fight. We should be talking about that fight right now. That should have been
Happening
his
in the fall.
bye-bye
Right.
fight. Yeah, but look, props to Devin. They taking on a tough. We talked about 140 when we came on. He's with Matchroom, not with PBC though. Regis Prograis, and I'm happy for Regis. He's getting we didn't think he would get no big fights like that. He got one right off the rip. So he getting a good fight with Devin. It's on pay-per-view. I don't know about that, but I think they'll make decent money. We'll see. We'll go from there.
Yeah, man. I mean, they're still
Yeah.
out. Yeah, because he put out the tweet. That I
Well, it was about the. I mean, technically, what Devin is saying is right. You don't want the fight being on the same day as Fury. Like you want
Yeah,
all the, especially on paper when you're asking people to buy something.
right.
They'll get it worked out. I'm confident. Look, and I understand Regis side too. Look, they signed the contract, and he thought that was for the date. And you know these guys are very they're sticklers about dates, deadlines, their body, superstition, some of that stuff. So, but I think he'll be all right once they tell him, like, look, man, you know this is a great situation. Let's not walk away from it because let's be honest, who else are you going to fight
Right.
with this type of name recognition? You know, unless he's gonna fight somebody like Tio, you know, which I don't think is gonna happen. But the Tio's another guy. Like I don't want to leave him out. Like I think that's another big fight
Yeah, it is.
that you can't rule out. You
No,
know?
for sure. I mean, yeah, just
Yeah.
the promo for that would be, off the charts.
Yeah.
So you gotta
So
think.
it is. It's just that it's just sad that we didn't get. I don't think we're gonna get the answers that we was looking for. Like who's the best out of all those guys, and for a few years,
I
you know,
agree, and
they're
like
all
we've
kind of.
always said, like at welterweight is like they're when they're
That's
probably
where
all gonna fight.
we kept saying it. Like this is what if you really look. I remember, although they were all fighting good competition, but you look at guys like Shane Mosley, Zab Judah, Mayweather. They was all kind of each other way, right? Shane was a little older than those guys,
Yeah.
so he was kind of getting more opportunities than the rest of those guys. But they all was like kind of. Remember, Shane was supposed to fight Zab, but then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know that was. Something happened in the shower, I think. It was
Broke
some
his hand.
crazy,
Or he cut it. Yeah,
pre
I remember that. Yeah, we cut his.
pre-fight injury, and you know, it didn't ever materialize. But Floyd did fight Shane later. And look, you saw what happened in that fight. Why? And this is why people always wanted those fights to happen. You know, you saw like what took place in midway through the fight, and Floyd worked his way out of it. Look, the Zab fight fought the first, probably the greatest 3 rounds of his life. But this is why like you be wanting to see these fights take place before guys, before things happen. But some of them fights don't be the same as they may have could have been before things, materialize. So
Yeah.
we just
Before we wrap up, the one fight that I completely lost sight of that's happening this weekend is
oh yeah yeah.
Anthony Joshua, who was supposed to fight Dillian White. He gets busted for PEDs. In steps in Robert Helenius, who
How many
fought.
times has he been busted though for PEDs, Dylan White?
Well, I know Big Baby got caught.
Yeah.
He got. I don't know. Like, is this number 2?
Okay. Yeah, I think this is the second time.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, man. I mean,
Yeah. It's
and in
what's
steps
going on
in.
over in the UK?
Oh, yo.
Right. I mean, seriously.
No, that's
I know
crazy.
it happens everywhere, but
Derek Chisora's on this card. He's fighting Gerald Washington. But yeah, so Joshua, he's. I mean, yeah, this is his first fight since the Usyk fight, the second Usyk fight. I don't, and he's training with Derek James. So Robert Helenius fought a couple like last week, right? Something like
So
that.
did it get disqualified? Like I'm still trying to understand. Like, how did he fight 2 weeks ago and he's
Did
fighting?
he like not get hit or something? I don't know. I didn't see the
like
fight.
something must have happened. Something we missing that happened. Maybe it ended quick.
Well,
I gotta look into that.
So this is August. All right. So all right. And let's just say Anthony Joshua gets past this, right?
Okay.
Are we gonna get this December Wilder Joshua fight? Because listen, all I heard was Wilder and Ruiz, and then Wilder and Joshua had this guaranteed fight. But I gotta say something. We've had like the 2023 has been a crazy.
Been crazy.
The one division that has been crickets has been the heavyweight division. Like,
yeah, it's been flat, bro. I'm gonna be honest, I forgot about it. Like, it's still oblivious.
Yeah, it's nuts. And
it had a spark. It came back strong. Like the last 2 years, it's been great. Well, the last really since the first Wilder and Fury encounter. So that was
saw things happening. You were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, the Insta came, and then Joshua, whatever. But it's a weird division, bro. It's weird. Like And I know they got this kid, Jared Anderson. You just talked about him. He's so small. Like I seen him in person twice, and at the Boots fight, and I seen him out Vegas when I was out there. He was actually like kind of like in the area where I was at, and I'm like, this is like these new wave heavyweights. Like he used to look like a super middleweight.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, bro.
So it's
But
kind of
yeah,
a
it's been
question
flat.
mark, man. I don't know. I don't know where this is. Because look, Tyson Fury fighting this dude Ngannou, and it's a circus fight. But I leave the door open for him to say, have a nice day. Like I've had a
Yeah,
career. I don't need to prove anything.
right. I know.
So
No, you're right.
then it's Usyk who's fighting Daniel Dubois, who
You're
who
right.
just lost. It's
Yeah,
just and where's Frank Sanchez?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I know.
so I don't
I
know,
know.
man.
It's weird division. But yo, before we wrap up too, some news. David Benavidez, Bubu Andrade, finalizing their fight for the fall.
Oh yes,
Yeah. So
that's
that's look like it's done. That look like
listen,
it's
man.
done. Yeah.
You can't, for David Benavidez, right?
Yeah.
That he would have fought Caleb Plant and Bubu
Yes.
Andrade.
Yes.
Like he's like, what do we
Back
say,
to back.
man?
Back to back.
Back to back. Create your
Yeah.
business. Create your matchups.
Yeah, you
Make
always
a
say that, bro.
reason,
You say
right? And
you say that. Yeah.
where it's undeniable, and he's doing the
Yeah.
right. He's doing the
Build your own
Burrell fight
legacy.
was
Everything will play itself out. Everything will play itself out.
right, where it becomes undeniable, and I think again, like Canelo, they're doing the press conference. I think this
And you told me two city doors. New York and
New
LA,
York,
I'm
and yeah.
assuming.
So look,
Yeah.
I said this about this deal that Canelo has with the PBC. Errol Spence was being mentioned as far as like this third
Yeah.
option.
Scratch,
Dude, like you
Yeah.
scratch that, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's undeniable that unless September 30th turns into like a hey yo, like
We
I
need to see that again.
I think David Benavidez ultimately is that guy that could potentially be at the end of the line, um, which by then could be like, no
Who
pun,
you
a
think the
monster
second
fight.
fight would? Who you think the second fight would be?
I
I
mean,
still think it's the
everybody see. Oh man, I don't know because all right. So if Benavidez fights Boo Boo, then it's like you're asking yourself like, all right, well, how would Maul get in this? How would he get involved in here? Does he get
You think he's
involved?
coming back? You think he's coming back?
It's such a. I'll say this, man. Like it, I think for the sake of him being out like literally now over 2 years, he should be
That'll be
stripped.
three.
He should no. I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be. It's two technically.
Oh, it's gonna be two.
Yeah,
Okay, I got
he
you.
should be stripped of the title. Like he should be stripped of the WBC title, man. Like come on, it's
That's crazy. His
ridiculous.
brother got stripped. Yeah.
Yeah, man. But yeah, like I think there should be a point like across the board, man. Like if you don't compete for like a period of time, whatever you want to be champion in recess, and then when you come back, you can fight for the contention of the title. I'd even be okay with that, But they gotta let these other guys, you know. That's why I said with Devin Haney, like I get what he's doing. It's you're playing the power move, like kind of saying I
Yeah.
don't relinquish my belts, I'm going up. But
Yeah.
ultimately, his body's
And
gonna tell him you ain't going back down. So
and like a people gotta understand this too, right? And I was talking to Mr. RLD, it's like you said, it's mind
mind
games
games, yeah,
because
I get it.
you're playing you're playing spoiler to your rivals too.
Right,
That's that part. Like y'all not gonna take what I worked hard for on some relinquished stuff. So I'm gonna play the waiting game. I'm gonna wait.
right.
Although I just like Jermell, I don't believe he's coming back to 154. I don't.
I have a tough time believing
I
that.
don't.
Yeah,
I don't
I
believe
have
it.
a tough time
I don't
believing.
believe it. I don't like again. Who's advising these guys like to go all the way up and come up. I know Kell Brook went up to fight Triple G, and he came back to fight Spence. That's the most recent one, and that did not go well
Go
for
well
him.
for him.
You know what I
Early
mean?
on it did, but then ultimately it was just
Maybe that's a different fight with him and Spence, and he never move up. And I hate doing a hindsight 2020 thing, but he took such a physical beating in that fight. He was doing well in that fight, but he was getting broken down. So then you got to shed. So you go up to 160. So you got to shed. what's that? 13 pounds, which is it's funny. It's just literally 1 pound different from what Jermell got to do. It takes its toll. And look, Kel was a lot younger than what
Mel is.
what Mel is, so I just don't see unless like I don't know, bro. I don't see it. I just don't see it. How it happens. And I feel bad for Crawford because he like kind of getting done dirty out of
there,
it.
like
Yeah. In a perfect world, man, he would be like a hero. Like if just think about it. If Mel wasn't fighting Canelo, Crawford would be we would be right back here again.
Yeah.
Talking about this big fight that's taking place whenever it's taking place. But now, like we was talking in our chat, what if Mel wins? Like you can't not rule that out. Like,
yeah.
what if he wins?
Yeah.
Now that changes everything.
I just have a tough time seeing him come back down to 154.
Yeah, I just don't think no matter what happens,
at
thank
least
God forbid
160
he
he'll
stop.
go, and that's it. Yeah.
It's only one scenario, Crawford. It's really one scenario he can hope for. That Mel fights this so competitive fight, he don't win, but he's like, all right, what the hell? I'm gonna just go get this payday from Crawford and move on my merry way. But if God forbid if Mel gets knocked out, you can forget about it. Or if it's here's the other thing about a close fight. It could be a rematch. Because remember, you got this second fight that don't.
And he'll make more. And he'll make more money fighting Canelo again.
He'll get the right money that people be like, oh, you know how the story goes. Oh, give him a full training camp. That's why I'm saying, like, well, you said it. We really can't talk about Bud until after.
Right, yo. And Bud kind of, he didn't say it directly, but
he kind of said it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
He can't be too happy about that, though. Like, because we say Tim Tszyu, like, it's easy for us to say it, but he don't really want.
He don't want to get up for that.
He don't want that. Like, you coming from getting up for Spence, and there's no disrespect to Tim Tszyu, but it's like, what has he done to, like, really earn the spot? You know what I mean? So he, like, if I knock this guy out,
man, that's kind of the thing, man.
Yeah, they would have to pay him a lot of money for that Tim Tszyu fight.
Yeah,
like to make it worth his while. But yeah, all right, bro.
So that's pretty much it, man. Follow us on the gram. You already know.
Yep.
So we'll be back next week covering this fight, and then what's going on this? Well, yeah, the press conference will, it'll
be here before you know it.
Yeah, we'll see if Canelo comes out with the because
I think this is going to get spicy.
I think so too, yo.
But they don't. The good thing about them is that they only know one way. So this is going to help sell the fight. And look, this is one of the reasons why they picked them. They know they gonna be turned up and talking.
Yeah, especially Canelo now, where he throwing the F-bombs and everything like that. But yeah, man. So we'll be back next week.
We'll be back. Yep.
Thanks,
everybody. We see y'all. Peace.